So today's video will be all about the new Next.js feature called On-Demand ISR. We will learn what it is, how it works, and how to actually use it to instantly update our Next.js website after content has been updated inside of the Headless CMS. ISR itself has been around already from the Next.js version 9.5, but the latest update adds the possibility to use it on demand. In this video, we will focus on the on-demand feature of ISR. So if you want to refresh your memory on ISR in general, watch this video over here where I explain in detail what ISR is. But yeah, I'm super excited about this on-demand feature because, for example, if you have a blog or an e-commerce site, and especially if you use a headless CMS, this on-demand ISR is just the greatest feature for you. And that is because whenever the content is updated in the Headless CMS or wherever you host your content, with on-demand ISR you can basically with just a push of a button update the page that the content update affects. So you don't have to rebuild your whole site in order to show that updated content. So this is super powerful. Let's take a look on how it works in action. So right here I have opened the blog post that announced the changes in Next.js version 12.1. And right here we have the on-demand ISR. So with this update, Next.js now exposes this function unstable revalidate that allows us to manually purge the Next.js cache for a specific page on demand. So currently, if we set the revalidate time for 60 seconds, all visitors will see the same generated version of our site for 1 minute. And the only way to invalidate the cache was from someone visiting that page after the minute had passed. But with this update, we can now manually purge the Next.js cache for a specific page on demand. And we can do this by using this unstable revalidate function. And as you can see, the function has that unstable underscore prefix, and that is because this feature is still in beta. Being able to revalidate the cache for a specific page on demand makes it easier for us to update our site when, for example, the content from our Headless CMS is created or updated, or if we have an e-commerce site and the metadata changes. So for example, a price of an item changes. So right here is an example how we can use it with an API route. So the only thing we need to do to revalidate a page is to call this unstable revalidate function with the page we want to revalidate as a parameter. So let's now implement this to our own application. So I will use this blog application that we created in previous videos and implement this on-demand ISR for this application. So it is a Next.js blog application and it uses Data CMS as a headless CMS. And at this point I want to say thank you to Data CMS for sponsoring this video. And if you're not already familiar with Data CMS, go ahead and check out their website datacms.com. But simply put, they are very user and developer friendly headless CMS, and they have a bunch of great features. For example, structured text that we use in our own application to show the blog posts. Then they have the images API, which is great. We get all our content as GraphQL through that GraphQL content API. And also they provide, for example, real-time updates. So if you want to show live changes to the content on your website, that's possible with this real-time updates feature. So if you are looking for a place to host your Next.js application's content, go ahead and check out Data CMS. You can try it out for free. So back to the blog application. If you want to follow along, you can clone the repo from my GitHub, and let me just show you how it looks like when it's running. So it's very simple blog application. It has the front page with the blog posts, and then if you open one, it opens up a blog page that displays the contents of that blog post. And the idea is to have this page automatically update whenever we change content inside of a blog post. So let's start by adding that API route to our application. So I'm gonna open up the blog post and just copy this and modify it from there. Then I'll switch to Visual Studio Code where I have the project open and actually create that API route. So pages API, new file, like this, then paste in the code and let's save it. Then let's modify this to meet our needs. So let me just write in some comments what we want to do. So first we want to only allow post requests, so check that the request is a post request. And second, we want to check the secret token, so this is kind of a password, so we want to just make sure that we are the only ones that can run this API route. Then we want to actually pass in the slug we want to revalidate, so the page we want to revalidate in the request body. So this step is just to make sure that the body is not empty and the slug is present. Then we want to get the slug we want to revalidate from the body, and last, use that to revalidate that page. So that's pretty much the flow of this API route. So let's start with the first one. So I'm gonna write in the code and then explain it. So right here, we just check that if the request method is something else than post, we return 400 and the error message. Then for the next one, we want to check for the secret token. So it's basically this one over here. And instead of using an environment variable, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just gonna type it in right here. But of course, for production, you should use that environment variable. So I'm just gonna use it like this. So we check that if the query parameter secret is something else than Tuomo, then we will return an error. Then we want to check if the body is empty. So let me type this in like this. So we take the body from the request, and if it's empty, we just return 400 and an error message. Then next, we want to get the slug from the body, and I'm gonna type this in like this. So we named the variable as slug to revalidate and take it from the body. So this means that we need to use this slug to revalidate variable name in the request body to tell this API route which page to revalidate. And then we check that it's not undefined, and if it's set, we use that unstable revalidate function to revalidate that page. So right here we have the /blog / the slug. So I added this /blog over here because that's the URL structure of our application. So it will have /blog and then the slug. Then we return the response with revalidated set to true. Then I will actually wrap that code inside of try-catch. So let me just do that like this, and then remove this code over here like this. So right here we have the API route that handles the on-demand ISR, so revalidating the specific page, and it works when we pass in the secret as Tuomo and then the slug to revalidate variable inside the request body. So let's try this out. So I'm gonna open up my Thunder client in Visual Studio Code and make a new request. Then we want to make a post request to localhost 3000 /API /revalidate article. And then we want to pass in that secret query parameter. So I'll add that like this. And then we still need to add the slug to revalidate to the body. So I'll click body. So in the body, we want to pass in the slug to revalidate. And if we open up our application, we can see, let's take the tuna salad blog post. So right here we can see the slug, so it's tuna salad. So let's pass that like this. And now let's send it and see what happens. So we get an error. Let's see. Oh, one thing we probably need to do for this feature, I just remembered it. If we check the package.json file, we are still using the Next.js version 11. So what we want to do is update this to use the latest version. So let's do that. Okay, now it's using the 12.1. So let's start our server again. Okay, it's running, then open the request and let's try to send it again. Okay, now we got the status 200 and the response revalidated true. So looks like the API route is working, so there is no errors there. So as we know, in development mode, Next.js builds each page on request time, so we can't properly test this with the dev server. So what I want to do next is to actually deploy this to Vercel, to the production, and then try to update some content in the data CMS, in the Headless CMS, and then see if we can use this API route to show that content instantaneously. And just to make the testing easier, let's open up the blog page that shows the information of that blog post. And right here we have the getStatic props function somewhere here. And we are having the revalidate time as 15. So it has 15 seconds before it revalidates automatically. So let's make this a little bit longer so it's just easier for us to test that the on-demand ISR is actually working. So I'm gonna set it to 2 minutes and let's save that. So right now I'm gonna deploy this to Vercel, and I've actually set it up so that whenever I push something to the main branch of the repo, it will automatically trigger a deploy. So I'm just gonna do that. Okay, now it is pushed to the production and it should be deployed in a couple of minutes. In the meanwhile, let's open up Data CMS. So right now I'm inside Data CMS and I actually get a notification because I have linked Data CMS with my Vercel account. I can see a notification that publication was successful or the deployment was successful. So that's great. So here inside the Data CMS, I'm in the Content tab and let's open up the articles and we can see all the articles over here. So let's open up that tuna salad that we were using previously. And right here I have the content. And this is actually the structured text feature that I was talking about earlier. We can add structured text inside of here with a bunch of different options. So let's just add a new heading over here and let's say this is test. And actually before making any changes inside here, let's open up the production side of our blog. So right here I have the production side open of the blog application. So let's open up that tuna salad blog post and here is the content we have for it. So right now let's switch back to the Data CMS and we added this heading over here. Let's save it and publish it. And now if we switch back to the website and refresh it, we don't see anything yet. And that's because we have the revalidation time 2 minutes, the 120 seconds. So let me just wait out that time and we should actually see it when we refresh it after 2 minutes. So I will wait out 2 minutes and come back to you after that. Okay, now it should be over 2 minutes that we refreshed this page last time. So once I refresh this, it should show the modification we made over here, so that heading. So let's refresh the page. Okay, so it doesn't do it for the first time, so now it served the last version of the page, and after this refresh it should show the change. So yeah, like this. So this is the old ISR, so how the ISR works with the revalidation time. So let's now test if we can actually manually purge that cache. So when we make that change to the Data CMS, we can actually see the change right away and not have to wait 2 minutes. So before we do any modifications, I'm gonna open up my request and actually modify these to point to the production so we can right away send it when we modify the content. So let me just change that address to point to production like this. This should work now and we can actually try to send it right now, see what it returns, and looks like it returns revalidated true. So that's great. So right now, let's modify the content over here. I'll add another text. Let's save it and publish it. And if we refresh the page right here a couple of times, it doesn't show the content. But now let's send that revalidate request with the tuna salad slug. It says true, and now if we refresh the page, we can actually see the change right away. So that's great. The API route is working and we can see the changes instantaneously when we revalidate the cache. But this is not very practical that whenever we make a change inside the Headless CMS, we open up our VS Code and make this request with the correct slug. So we want to automate this. So how can we do this? Well, luckily Data CMS offers webhooks that we can use. So if we go to the settings tab and down here we have webhooks and we create new, we can actually automatically trigger that request to the revalidation API route whenever one of our blog posts is updated. So let's configure this webhook right now. So first let's give it a name. I'm gonna call it like that. It's enabled. Then HTTP settings. So here we have the URL that we want to send the request to, and that is the same URL we have over here. So that's the URL of that API route. So I'll paste it in, and we have the secret as a query parameter. And you could pass this secret also in the headers. We could add own headers over here or use basic authentication. But for our example, we just use it right there. So it's easy to understand, easy to use. Then let's add triggers. So we want to trigger this request whenever a record is published or unpublished. So we don't want to trigger this when it's updated because the changes won't be visible until you publish it. Then we want to add a condition saying that trigger this only for specific models. So right here we can define that whenever an article is published or unpublished, trigger this webhook. So right here we want to select articles. So this is the name of the model we had over here, like you can see over here. It's an article model. And then if we scroll down, we have the HTTP body, and we actually want to send a custom payload because we want to send that slug to revalidate in that request body. And to understand this payload a little bit better, let's open up the docs from the link down there. So here is the webhooks docs. So let's scroll down a little bit. So right here we have the HTTP request details. So right here we have an example of a body of that request. So right here we can see that we have the entity, then under that we have the attributes, and then there seems to be a name. So these are the properties that each entity and model has. So for our model, if I open up the article model, we can see we have all these properties. And what we want to pass in for that request is that slug. So we should be able to send it from the inside the entity, inside the attributes, and then the slug. So let's try to write it down here. So I'll add the property like this, and then we can use these must-has variables. So I'll add the entity, and inside of there it was the entity. Then there was the attributes like this, and then was the slug variable. So I'll add that. And then let's close those tags like this. This should now place that slug value for that article that was updated inside the request body. Now let's submit this. So it says webhook created successfully. Great, it's set up now, so now it should be working. So let's open up the tuna salad page again. Oh, this was localhost, so right here. So this is the latest version of this page, and now if I go to the content and article and the tuna salad article and add something here like this. And now if I save this and check the blog page, it's not yet visible because we set the webhook to trigger whenever it's published. So let's publish it. And now if we change back to the blog post page and refresh it, it becomes visible right away. So it looks like our webhook is working, and we can actually double check it if we go to the settings tab and then from the webhooks the activity log, and looks like it failed the request actually. So it made it to the right URL, but yeah, so looks like we forgot that parentheses after the slug variable, and it actually returned invalid JSON. So it didn't revalidate it actually. I think what happened was that because I refreshed it 2 times and after that it was visible. So what happened was that it actually used the 2-minute revalidation time instead of the on-demand ISR. So let's fix that problem and try again. So go to the webhooks and then select the revalidate article webhook, and down here let's add that parentheses at the end and submit. Okay, now it should be good to go. So let's go back to the article content and modify this. And let's actually not save it yet. I'll go to the blog page and refresh it a couple of times. So now it should be the 2-minute started right now. So when I save this, nothing happens yet. If I refresh this, yep. Then when I publish it, the webhook should fire, and now it should be, the changes should be visible right away from the first refresh. So let me do that. Great, so now we got the modification over here with the first refresh. And if we take a look at the webhook activity log from the settings and activity log, okay, so now it's HTTP 200, so the request was successful and we got the response we wanted, so revalidated true. So right now, whenever we make a change to a blog post inside Data CMS, we can see the changes right away in the website. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please do hit the like button below and also subscribe to the channel because I have a lot more Next.js content coming, so you won't miss out on those. And if you want to watch more Next.js content right now, don't worry, I got you. I leave a link to my Next.js videos playlist over there so you can start watching those. I'll see you in the next video.